It's the Edexcel GCSE Maths Higher Tier Non-Calculator Paper 1 from November 2023. Let's get straight into it. Question 1. Work out 6.3 times 2.4. Whenever you're multiplying decimals, you're going to ignore the decimal point and multiply them without them. So 63 multiplied by 24. I'm going to do 4 times by the 63 first. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 6 is 24. Add the 1 is 25. Then we're doing 20 times by 63, so put a 0 on first. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 6 is 12. Add them up together, so you get 2, that's 11, that's 5, and that's 1. So you've got 1,512. You need to remember that you have 2 decimal places in the question, so that means you're going to move the decimal point 2 places back. So the decimal would be between the 5 and the 1. And you could also estimate this, 6 times 2 is 12, so it needs to be around 12, and that is, so that's correct. Question 2. Write down the value of 5 to the power of 0. Whenever you have anything to the power of 0, the answer will always be 1. So this is just 1. Part 2, write down the value of 5 to the negative 2. So this time we have a negative indice, so the first thing that I need to do with this is flip it. That will get rid of that negative, so it becomes 1 over 5 to the power of 2. 5 squared is just 5 times 5, so that would be 1 over 25. Part B, write 2 to the power of 5 times 2 to the power of 4 divided by 2 to the power of 3 in the form 2 to the power of something where n is an integer. So all we're doing is we're simplifying this, so it should look like 2 to the power of something. Whenever you're multiplying and you have the same base, you just add the powers together and you just keep the base. So this would become 5 add 4. 5 add 4 is 9, so it becomes 2 to the power of 9. Then it's being divided by 2 to the power of 3. You could write this out as 2 to the power of 9 divided by 2 to the power of 3, but you're just dividing in both cases. Whenever you're dividing and you have the same base, you just subtract the powers from each other. So 9 take away 3 would become 6, so it's 2 to the power of 6. Question 3. 156 as a product of its prime factors. I'm going to use a prime factor tree for this one. So I start off with 156 and I think of a pair of factors that go into 156. It's even because it ends in a 6, so I can divide it by 2. And 2 is a prime number, so I need to circle it. 156 divided by 2 would be 78, and this is again divisible by 2. It's not a prime, so you don't circle it. So that's a prime. Half of 78 is 39, and we need to think of factors that go into 39. So it divides by 3, so 3 is a prime, and 13 3s go into 39. And 13 is also a prime number. Just finishing this question off, we write 156 is equal to 2 to the power of 2, 2 squared, times by the 3, times by the 13. If you want to check this, you can multiply all of these out and you should get 156. Part B, find the highest common factor of 156 and 130. So we've already found the prime factors of 156, so let's use that. So 156 is equal to 2 squared times by 3 times by 13. And we've got 130 here. It's quite interesting. We could divide this one by 13, so that would be 13 times by 10, and 10 is the same as 2 times by 5. And if we're looking for the highest common factor, we're looking for the lowest power of all of the common factors. So 2, the lowest power of the 2's is just 2. From the 3's, there's nothing common there, and there's a 13 that's common. So it'd be 2 times 13, and there's nothing common with that 5. So whenever you're doing a highest common factor, just look for the lowest power of all of the common factors, and 2 times by 13 would be 26. Question 4. The mean length of 5 sticks is 4.2 centimeters. Now we'll measure the length of one of the sticks as 7 centimeters. Work out the mean length of the other 4 sticks. So we know that one of them is 7, but we're trying to find the other 4, the mean length of the other 4. We know the mean length of the 5 is 4.2. So how do we work out mean? So mean is total divided by the frequency. And this time we know what the mean is, it's 4.2. We don't know what the total is, but we know the frequency. The frequency is how many numbers there are, there's 5. So all we need to do here, to get x on its own, we multiply both sides by 5. So we're doing 4.2 times by 5. Quick way to do that, you could times it by 10 and then divide it by 2. So 4.2 times 10 is 42, and divide it by 2 is 21. So we know that the total of all of these will be 21. And he's measuring one of them at 7 centimeters. So that means the rest of them are going to be 21 take away 7, which equals 14 centimeters. We want the mean length of those 4 sticks, so we're going to do 14 divided by the frequency, which is 4. So 14 divided by 4, just simplify it like a fraction, so 7 over 2. Now I made a mistake. The stick was not 7 centimeters long, it was 17 centimeters long. So the stick that he measured originally, he thought it was 7, but it actually was 17. How does this affect your answer to part A? Let's just think, if we took off 17 over here instead of 7, we would end up with a much smaller answer here, and the mean of the remainder ones would be much smaller. So we can just continue the question on from here. We've got 21, take away 17 this time, which would be 4, and that 4 would be divided by 4, the frequency, which leaves us with an average of 1 centimeter. The average would be smaller at 1 centimeter. Question 5. The point P lies on the line AB. Use ruler and compasses to construct an angle of 90 degrees at P. Show all your construction lines. I've got P over here, and I need to take my compass. I'm just going to put it at any point. I'm going to draw a circle from the center at P. I'm going to move my compass over to one of the points where it crosses that line. I'm going to change the length, so just increase it slightly. So it goes past that point P, just lock that in, and I'm going to draw a circle from there. And I'm going to do the same where it crossed here at the line. So I've drawn 2 circles, and you can see that point of intersection with those 2 circles, it'll create a 90-degree angle. So I just need to connect those 2 up. Just draw that on, so that would be 90 degrees. Question 6. The diagram shows an isosceles triangle ABD. So A to B to D is isosceles, and I can see that BD and BA are the same length as each other. So that means is DA, and that means these base angles will be the same as each other. Because this is an X, that will also be X. And the straight line ABC, that's just a straight line. BA equals BD, so BA is equal to BD, that's already on. And X to Y is in the ratio 2 to 1. Work out the value of W. So we're trying to find out this angle over here. Let's first convert this into an equation. So if I cross multiply, X times by 1 is equal to X, and Y times by 2 is equal to 2Y. So now I can replace these X's with 2Y's instead. That's 2Y and that's 2Y. Because I've got the same letters in this triangle, I can add them all up together, and it's going to equal 180. So I've got 2Y plus Y, which is going to equal angles in a triangle 180. 2y plus y, that's 2 plus 2 plus 1, which is 5y equals 180. To divide by 5, I just divide it by 10, and then I double it. So y is equal to 18 times by 2, which is 36. So each y here is 36 degrees. I just need that one for now. We want the value of w, that's on a straight line. So I know this one and this one would add up to make 180. So I'm going to do 180, take away 36, which would give me 144. So w is 144. Question 7. There's 3 shelves of books. There are X books on shelf A, that amount of books on shelf B, that amount of books on shelf C. There is a total of 44 books on the 3 shelves. All the books have the same mass. The books on shelf B have a total mass of 7,500. Work out the total mass of the books on shelf A. So we're trying to find out how much all of these books weigh. We're going to have to solve 2 equations here. One of them will consider how many books are on each shelf, and then one of them will consider how much each book weighs. Let's do how many books are on each shelf first. So we've got all of these added up together. We've got x plus 3x plus 1 plus 2x minus 5, and that's going to equal 44, the total amount of books. So 1 plus 3, which is 4, 4 plus 2, which is 6. 1 take away 5, which is negative 4. So 6x minus 4 is equal to 44. X is being multiplied by 6, and then we're taking away 4. So we need to do the opposites of that. We're going to add 4 first to both sides. So 6x would be equal to 44 add 4, which is 48. X is being multiplied by 6, so we need to divide by 6. X would be equal to 8. So now we know how many books are on each shelf. Let's just look at shelf B, because we know all of them will add up to make 7,500 grams. So if I substitute x equals 8 into shelf B, I'm doing 3 times by 8 plus 1 is equal to 3 times 8 is 24, add 1 is 25. So now I know there's 25 books on shelf B. So those 25 books, the weight of them will equal 7,500, because it told me that over here. So let's find out the weight of one book. I need to divide both sides by 25, so I've got W is equal to 7,500 divided by 25. 75 divided by 25 is 3, so I need 2 more zeros at the end. So each weight of each book will be equal to 300 grams. We need to think about how much the books on shelf A weigh. So altogether, there are 8 books that weigh 300 grams each. Multiply those together, so that'd be 8 times 3, which is 24. We need 2 more zeros, so 2,400 grams. Question 8. The normal price of a mattress is reduced by 40% in a sale. So the original price was 100% and we took away 40%. So the new value of that mattress will be 60%. The price of the mattress in the sale is £660. Work out the normal price of the mattress. So we're trying to find out what 100% is. So we know that 60% is equal to £660. We're trying to find what 100% is, so we're looking for a number that goes into both 60 and into 100. So I think an easy one here to choose would be 10. So I need to divide the left-hand side first by 6. 660 divided by 6, 66 divided by 6 is 11, so it's going to be £110. And then need to multiply it by 10 on both sides. So 110 times by 10, which is 1,100. Question 9. To cook rice, the number of cups of rice to the number of cups of water is 4 to 5. So x to y is in the ratio 4 to 5. Use this information to draw a graph to show the relationship between the number of cups of rice and the number of cups of water needed to cook rice. Let's just use this information to plot on a few points. So I know x is 4, which is the number of cups of rice, and y would be 5. That's one of my points. If I double both of these, so I multiply both of them by 2, I would have 8 to 10. So that would be 8, and that would be 10. And if there were 0 cups of rice, we would have 0 cups of water. We just need to draw a straight line going through all of those points. Part B, find the gradient of the line drawn in part A. So you could look at the rise divided by the run. Here, the rise is 5 divided by the run, which is 4. So 5 divided by 4, you could just write it as 5 quarters. Part 2, explain what this gradient represents. This 5 quarters is just saying for every 1 cup of rice, I'm going to need 5 quarters cup of water. So I'm going to need 1.25 cups of water. So for every cup of rice, 5/4 cup of water is required. Question 10. The circumference of a circle is 10 meters. Work out the area of the circle. Give your answer in terms of pi. We're going to need our formulas for circles. So it's cherry pie delicious and apple pies are 2. So this is the formula for circumference and that's the formula for area. Because we know what circumference is, I know this C is going to be equal to 10 is equal to pi times by diameter. I want diameter on its own, so I need to divide both sides by pi. So diameter is equal to 10 over pi. I've got the diameter, which is 10 over pi, but the formula for area is pi r squared, where we need the radius. So the radius is half of the diameter. So here I just need to divide that numerator by 2. So it would become 5 over pi. Now I can find out what the area is. Substitute this radius into the formula for area. So area is equal to pi multiplied by my radius squared. So it's 5 over pi squared. This 5 over pi squared means 5 over pi multiplied by 5 over pi. And 5 times 5 is 25 and pi times pi is pi squared. Bring this over here, we have pi multiplied by 25 over pi squared, which is pi times 25, which is 25 pi, over pi squared. And you can think of this pi squared as pi times by pi. So that means one of these pi's is going to cancel out. Final answer would be 25 over pi. 11. Alice recorded the number of cars going into a village on each of 80 days. The incomplete table and the incomplete box plot give information about her results. So you need to use the information in the table to complete the box plot and use the information in the box plot to complete the table. So let's complete both of these together. The least number is 300. So I'm going to draw a line at 300, which is between 200 and 400. The lower quartile is between 800 and 600, and if that was 700, there's 5 gaps between them, so each gap would be worth 20. So 800 take away 20, which is 780. The median is 900, halfway between those two, so I can draw a line there. The upper quartile is at 1,200, and the range is 1,000. So the range is just the biggest number, take away the smallest number. So I've got a number, and I took away 300, and it gave me 1,000. So that number is going to have to be 1,300, which would be over here. Now I just need to join those lines up. Draw a line from my smallest number to my lowest quartile, and then from my upper quartile to my largest number. Part B. On some of these 80 days, Alice saw fewer than 1,200 cars going into the village. So that's over here. Work out an estimate for the number of days Alice saw fewer than 1,200 cars going into the village. So this point is very important. It's at the upper quartile. And the upper quartile is the top 75% of the data. That means it's 3/4 of the data. So if there were 80 days, we just want to find 3/4 of those 80 days. So 3/4 of 80, 80 divided by 4 is 20, and 20 times by 3 is 60. So we're going to estimate that in 60 days, she saw less than 1,200. Question 12. The straight line has equation 2y equals 3x minus 7. Find an equation of the straight line perpendicular to L that passes through 6 minus 5. First thing I can see, this is in the form y equals mx plus c. So it makes it a little bit hard to interpret where it is. M here is the gradient, which we're going to need for this question. And d is the y-intercept. We're not going to need this for this question. First thing I'm going to do is rearrange this so it looks like this. I've got y as my subject. So this one's quite nice. I just need to divide everything through by 2. So y is going to be equal to 3 over 2 x, take away 7 over 2. So these two lines are the same as each other. I've just divided it through by 2, so it looks like this. And now I can see what the gradient would be. M is the coefficient, the number before the x, so it's 3 over 2. And I want the gradient of the line that's perpendicular to it. So if I have one line, the line that will be perpendicular to it will be the line that crosses at right angles. So the gradient of this line is 3 over 2. It's a positive gradient, so it looks like that. The gradient of this line will be the inverse reciprocal. So what does that mean? Just means that if it's positive, it's going to change to a negative. So my new gradient is negative, and the reciprocal just means it's going to flip, it's going to swap. So it's going to become negative 2/3. So my new gradient is negative 2/3. Let's draw a box around that because that's important. We want the line that passes through 6 minus 5. So that's a coordinate here, 6 minus 5. That's my x coordinate and that's my y coordinate. I'm going to substitute all of these into this equation so that I can find out what this c is, where it crosses the y-axis. And then I can find out what my final equation is. So y here is negative 5 is equal to m, which is negative 2/3, x, which is 6, and c, which is the thing that we're trying to find out. So we're going to simplify this. Negative 5 is equal to negative 2 times 6 is negative 12, and negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4 plus c. I need to add 4 to both sides, so it'd be negative 1 is equal to c. And now I have my c value and I have my m value. So I can write out my final equation. Y is equal to negative 2/3 x plus negative 1, which is just negative 1. Question 13. Solid A and solid B are similar. So this just means that A has been multiplied by something to become solid B. The ratio of the height of solid A to the height of solid B is 2:5. So A to B, the length scale factor is 2:5. And the volume of solid A is 12. So that's 12. Work out the volume of solid B. So the first thing that you need to know is that if you have the length scale factor, which is x, the area scale factor, you don't need it for this question, would be x squared, and the volume scale factor would be x cubed. So first thing I'm going to find out, what is my length scale factor? I'm going to do my new one divided by my old one. So my length scale factor is equal to 5 over 2. I then want to work out what my volume scale factor is. So my volume scale factor, it's going to be x cubed, it's going to be 5 over 2 cubed. 5 times by 5 times by 5, which is 125, and 2 cubed, which is 8. That means from this 12, from this volume of 12, I need to multiply by 125 over 8 to get this value here. So I'm doing 12 times by 125 over 8. I can do cross-cancelling here, so I can see both of these divide by 4. So that would become 3, and that would become 2. And 3 times by 125 is 375. And there's an invisible 1 there. 1 times by 2 is just 2. So it's 375 over 2. Question 14. Work out the value of 27 to the power of 2 over 3 plus a half to the power of negative 3. Let's concentrate on each of these separately. So I'm going to do 27 to the power of 2 over 3. Whenever I've got fractions as indices, the bottom number, my denominator, is the root, and the top number is my power. So that's my root, that's my power. So I'll rewrite this as the cube root, because it's a 3, of 27, and then I need to square that number. So the cube root of 27, what multiplies by itself 3 times to give me 27, that would be 3. And 3 squared would be equal to 9. So I've done that first part. I need to concentrate on this part now. 1/2 to the power of -3. First thing I'm going to get rid of is this negative. So that means I need to find the reciprocal. I need to flip it. So it's going to become 2 to the power of 3. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So I've got 9, add 8, which is just 17. 15, an object falls from rest. Here is the distance time graph for the distance fallen by the object t seconds after it starts to fall. Work out an estimate for the gradient of the graph at t equals 3. Show how you get your answer. First thing I need to do is draw a line, and it's going to touch the graph just at t. So it's going to look something like this. It's just touching at t. The next thing I need to do is find my gradient. So gradient is just the rise over the run, or the change in y divided by the change in x. I'm going to choose 2 nice coordinates, so I can see this one is quite nice because it's at 3, and then I'm going to go along to 4 because that is just 1. It'll make it a little bit easier. And I'm going to count how many it's gone up by. So I've gone from here up to here. Each gap is going to be worth 5 because there's 10 gaps between 0 and 50, so each gap is worth 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So altogether that height is 25. The rise is 25, and the run from 3 to 4 is just 1. And 25 divided by 1 is just 25. Question 16. At the start of year n, the population of a species is Pn. At the start of the following year, the population of the species is given by this, where k is a positive constant. The population of the species at the start of year 1 is 8 million, and the population of species at the start of year 2 is 6 million. So this is 2 facts that they've given us. Work out the population of the species at the start of year 3. So we're going to need to find out what k is. Let's try this first sentence in mathematical terms. Population in year 1 is equal to k multiplied by the population of year 0, and that gave us 8 million. So that's just helping us understand how we're going to write this. For the second year, the population in year 2, it was k multiplied by the population in year 1, which we know was 8, and that was equal to 6. So we can solve this. We've got 8k is equal to 6. We need to divide both sides by 8, so k is equal to 6 over 8. That is the same as 3/4. So let's substitute that in here. So the population is equal to 3/4 of the previous year's population. We want to work out population in year 3, so we're going to do population of year 3, which is equal to, we know what k is, 3/4, multiplied this time by 6, because that was the population of the previous year. Cross cancel, so divide that by 2, divide that by 2, that become 2 and 3. So 3 times 3 is 9, and it'd be 9 over 2, or 4.5 million. At the start of year 5, the value of k is increased by 0.3 to a new constant value. So the previous constant was 3/4, or 0.75. And it's been increased by 0.3. So 0.75 plus 0.3, which would be 1.05. Lewis thinks that from the start of year 5, the population of the species would increase year on year. So let's just think about when it was 0.75, because it was less than 1, you're multiplying by a number less than 1, the population would be getting smaller every single year. But this time you're multiplying by a number greater than 1. That means the population is going to increase every single year. So multiplying by a number greater than 1 will mean the population will increase. Question 17. Factorize 6x squared minus 5x minus 4. First thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to multiply my a and my c. So I'm doing 6 times by negative 4, which is negative 24. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to make negative 24, and they're going to add to make this b coefficient. So they're going to add to make negative 5. I'm going to write out my factors of 24. So that'd be 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and I think it'll be 3 and 8. One of them will have to be negative because they're multiplying to become a negative. So it's either going to be positive 3 and negative 8, or negative 3 and positive 8. So I think it'll be negative 8 and positive 3. Because this is a 6x squared, I'm going to write 6x in the first bracket, minus 8, and in the second bracket, 6x again, plus 3. And you might be thinking, if I multiply these, 6 times by 6 would give me 36. So I don't want that. I don't want 36x squared. I want 6x squared. Think, what could I divide this one by, and what could I divide this one by, just to simplify it? So both of these divide by 2, and both of these divide by 3. So dividing everything here by 2 would give me 3x minus 4. And for this one, everything divided by 3, that would be 2x plus 1. And one way you can check this is 3 times by 2 gives me the 6x squared, and negative 4 times by the 1 gives you negative 4. Hence, or otherwise, solve 6x squared minus 5x minus 4 is less than 0. So we're just imagining, if we had this on a graph, we're looking for where is it underneath the x-axis. So let's just put both of these points on. We've got 3x minus 4. If we make it equal to 0, we can solve it. And we've got 2x plus 1, which is equal to 0. If I solve this one, I get x is equal to 4 over 3. And here, x is equal to negative a half. So it's going to cross this graph at negative a half, which is about here. It's going to cross at 4/3, which is over here. Remember, we're looking for the points where it's underneath the x-axis, so it's between negative a half and 4/3. So the way we can write this is when x is greater than negative a half, and when it's less than 4/3. Question 18. Spinner A and spinner B are each spun once. The probability that A lands on red is 1/4. So probability of A is equal to 1/4. The probability that both spinner A and spinner B land on red is 1 over 24. Work out the probability that one spinner lands on red and the other spinner does not land on red. To do this, I think to make it a little bit easier, it's probably better to draw it as a probability tree. Let's do the probability of spinner A. So this is all of spinner A, the options. So I've got red, and it could have not red. And we know the probability of red would be 1/4. So that means the probability of not red, because both of these will add up to make 1, that would be 3/4. Then we're going to do spinner B. Same again, we've got red and not red. It says the probability that both spinner A and spinner B land on red is 1 over 24. I have two events here. They've been multiplied and it's given me 1 over 24. So red and red again, so 1/4 times by something, I'll just call it x, is equal to 1 over 24. That means this x is going to be equal to 1 over 6. So getting probability of red here will be 1 over 6, and these two need to add up to make 1, so that would be 5 over 6. This would again be 1 over 6, and this would be 5 over 6. Work out the probability that one spinner lands on red and the other spinner does not land on red. So we're looking for two options. We're looking for red and not red, and then we're looking for not red and red. So we're going to find both of these, and then we're going to add them up together. So let's do probability of red, not red first, and then we're going to do probability of not red and red. So red and not red is 1/4 times by 5, 6. 1 times 5, which is 5, and 4 times 6, which is 24. Not red is 3/4 times by 1, 6. 3 times 1 is 3, 4 times 6 is 24. We just need to add those up together. So we've got 3 over 24 plus 5 over 24. They have common denominators already, so it's just going to be 8 over 24. And if you simplify 8 over 24, divide them both by 8, you get 1 over 3. So 1 over 3. Question 19. Here is a graph of y equals sine x between negative 180 and 180 degrees. Use the graph to find estimates of the solutions of when sine of x is equal to 0.3 between negative 180 and 180. So the graph already goes through those 2 points. We just need to find where x is 0.3. So it's going up in 0.1s. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and I'll draw a line there. And then the same point will appear over here. So I'm looking to find the value of that point, and I'm looking to find the value of that point. I can count between 0 and 90, there are 5, 10, 15 gaps. So those 15 gaps are equal to 90 degrees. So each gap, if I divide 90 by 15, it's going to be 6. So here I've got 1, 2, 3. So this angle will be at 18. And then I can just use reflections. So I know this is the middle. And I've got this point, which will be 180, take away 18, which would be 162. Part B. Write down a value of x such that sine of x plus 20, and that's inside the bracket, is equal to 0. So if it's inside the bracket, it's a translation of opposite of what you expect. So you would think it would move to the right 20, but here it's actually moving to the left by 20. So if we move this left by 20, where would it cross at 0? Because we're trying to solve for 0. So the first solution would be at negative 20. That would be somewhere about here. And if we move this one 20 to the left, that would be at 160. So you could have two solutions, negative 20 or 160. Question 20. Here is triangle ABC. Find the size of angle ABC. So we're trying to find this angle over here. Show all your working. So I've got a non-right angle triangle, so that means I'm either going to be using my sine rule or my cosine rule. And because I've got all of the sides and I'm trying to find one of the angles, I'm going to be using my cosine rule, which is a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos of a. The first bit is just Pythagoras, and then this bit is just a little bit added on to the end. I'm going to label my sides. Because this is the angle that I'm trying to find, I'm going to label this as A. The side opposite to it will be A, and the other sides don't really matter. I can label that as B and that as C. A squared, so I need A, 5 root 7, that's been squared, is equal to B squared, so 10 squared, plus C squared, 5 squared, minus 2 lots of B and C, so times by 10 times by 5, cos of A, which we're trying to find. Let's just simplify this. I've got 5 root 7 multiplied by 5 root 7. So 5 root 7 times 5 root 7. The 5 and the 5 will multiply to make 25. And root 7 times by root 7 becomes 7. So it becomes 25 times by 7. 25 times 4 is 100. I need 25 times 3, which is 75. So it's 175. So 175 is equal to 10 squared, which is 100, and 5 squared, which is 25. So that becomes 125 minus 2 times 10, which is 20. 20 times by 5 is 100, so it's negative 100 cos of A. Let's just move this 125 over to the other side. So I'm taking away 125, which is 50, is equal to negative 100 cos of A. Divide both sides by negative 100. So 50 over negative 100 is equal to cos of A. Just need to simplify this. So cancel out the zeros. I've got negative 5 over 10. So it's going to become negative a half is equal to cos of A. So now I need to find the inverse cos of negative a half. So the inverse cos of negative a half is equal to A. I already know what cos of a half is. It's going to be 60. And in one of the previous questions, we had the graph of sine of x, so you could use that to help you and just shift it along 90 degrees to the left. But let's just imagine that we don't have it. I'm going to draw the graph of cos of x. So cos of x will go through 1 and negative 1. It'll start at 1. The lowest point will be at 180, so it'll be over here, and it'll be back at 1 at 360. So it's going to look something like this. We already know that cos of a half is 60. So when it's 1/2, we're at 60 degrees, which is over here. We want to find out what cos of negative a half is. If we think about this graph, it's going to cross at 90. So it's 30 away when it's at a half. So it's going to be another 30 when it's at negative a half. So this will be at 120. Inverse cos of negative a half would be 120 degrees. Question 21. On the grid, draw the graph x squared plus y squared is equal to 169. The equation that you need to know for circles is x squared plus y squared is equal to the radius squared. The radius squared here is 169. So to find the radius, I square root both sides, so r is going to be equal to 13. So the center of that circle, because there's nothing extra here, is going to be at 0, 0, and the radius is at 13. So if that's my center, and the radius is 13, that will be one of the points. At 13, that will be another point. That'll be another point, and that'll be another point. I just need to draw a circle that's going through all of these points. That's the circle done. Use your graph to find estimates for the solutions of the simultaneous equations x squared plus y squared is equal to 269, and we've already drawn that on. And then we've got 2y is equal to 3x. I'm going to rearrange this, so we've got y is equal to something. We need to divide both sides by 2. So y is equal to 3 over 2x. That's my gradient. So one of the points is going to be at 0, 0 because there's no y-intercept. Let's plot a few points on so that we can draw that line. So when x is 2, we need to multiply it by 1.5 to find my y value. So 2 multiplied by 1.5, 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times by half is 1. So 2 add 1 is 3. Same here, 4 add half of 4 is 6. 6 plus half of 6, which is 9. I can do the same things in my negatives, so I've got 2 and negative 3, so negative 2, negative 3. Then I have negative 4, negative 6, and -6, -9. So really you only need 2 or 3 points and then you can draw your line, but it's just useful to get a few. Now that I've got my straight line, to solve these simultaneous equations graphically, all I do is I look for where they cross or intersect with each other. So I need to write down the coordinates of those points. I'm finding this coordinate and I'm finding this coordinate. So with this one, the x coordinate is between 6 and 8. There are 5 gaps. That's equal to 2. So each gap will be equal to 0.4. If I count here, I'm going across by 1, 2, 3. So 3 times by 0.4 is 1.2, and add that on to 6. So that would be x is equal to 7.2 for that coordinate. For this one, it's going up again in 0.4s, and it's 2 above that. So 10 add 0.4 times by 2 would be 10.8. So y would be 10.8. And if I take a look at this coordinate, it's the same, but it's just negatives. My x value could be positive and negative 7.2. And my y value would be positive and negative 10.8. Question 22. The second term of a geometric sequence is 3 plus 2 root 2. The third term of the sequence is 13 plus 9 root 2. Geometric just means that it's being multiplied by something every single time. Find the value of the common ratio of the sequence. So we're finding what has it been multiplied by every time. Give your answer in the form a plus root b, where a and b are integers. So this is telling me that there's probably going to be some rationalizing of the denominator here. Show all your working. Let's just take an easy geometric sequence. So I've got 1, 3, 9, and 27. So if I want to find out what they're being multiplied by every time, I do this one divided by this one. 9 divided by 3, which would give me 3. So it's being multiplied by 3. The common ratio of that one would be 3. So in this case, I'm going to do the third term divided by the second term. I'm doing 13 plus 9 root 2 divided by 3 plus 2 root 2. So right now, this is a little bit tricky because I've got surds on the top, surds on the bottom. I want to rationalize my denominator. Looking at what we found here, I'm going to divide my third term by my second term. So I'm doing 13 plus 9 root 2 divided by 3 plus 2 root 2. Right now, I can't divide this easily, so I need to rationalize my denominator. So whatever the sign is here, I'm going to swap it. So I'm going to multiply by 3 minus 2 root 2 on the bottom and 3 minus 2 root 2 on the top. I'm just multiplying by 1, but it's just going to remove this surd and it'll make it a little bit easier to divide by. So 13 times by 3 is 39, and 13 times by negative 2 root 2 is negative 26 root 2. 9 root 2 times by 3 is 27 root 2. And 9 root 2 times by negative 2 root 2. The 9 times by the negative 2 is negative 18. And root 2 times by root 2 is 2. So it's negative 18 times 2, which is negative 36. And on the bottom, it'll be a little bit easier. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times by negative 2 root 2 is negative 6 root 2. 2 root 2 times by the 3 is plus 6 root 2. And 2 root 2 times by negative 2 root 2, 2 root 2 times negative 2 root 2. So it's going to be a negative first. 2 times 2 is 4. And root 2 times by root 2 is 2. So it's negative 4 times by 2, or negative 8. And you can see that this bit here will cancel out. Let's simplify this top. So I've got 39 take away 36, which is 3. And negative 26 root 2 plus 27 root 2, which is plus root 2. That's over 9 take away 8, which is 1. So that would just simplify because you divided by 1, 3 plus root 2. That's the end of the questions for today. I'd recommend you go through all of them and write down the topics that you struggle with before you attempt another past paper. Feel free to contact me or reach out if you need any help with anything. Otherwise, you can just check out my channel for more walkthroughs or worked solutions, including the ones from this year's set. I'll see you soon.